Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel. And thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the creeping, almost insidious effect of ideological typely or ideologically contrived punishments for crimes as versus punishments for actual crimes. So here's a case here where this is considered to be non-consensual sexual relations. What does that mean? Well, it's kind of fourth degree rape, I suppose, in the ideological sense. So here's the boy and the girl are on a date. It's all consensual. They're all getting it on. The clothes are all off, but she's had a half a glass of wine too much. And so she then a week later or something like that, they have a boyfriend, girlfriend spat. Fuck, I'll fix you, motherfucker. I'm going to go to the police and say you raped me and this sort of stuff. Now, it's a very technical case, obviously, that no one's arguing that it was consensual or not consensual. That's not the issue here. But the application of the law here is that could she give informed consent? And the argument is, well, she had half a glass of wine too much. That means even though she gave consent, it has no legal power, and therefore, in a de facto sense, she did not give consent because that consent was given with half a glass of wine too much. Now, whether you think that's idiocy or nonsense or whatever, but that's the thing now. So the guy gets put into prison for 4 years for that, and he said, well, hey, hold on a minute, it was all consensual. I mean, how does he know that she's had half a glass of wine? He should have known. And if he didn't know, it's his fault. It's the responsibility is all his. None of it is hers, it's all his. So now let's take a situation. This is two white people in that case. Let's take a situation where a black guy, a career criminal, many offences, murders someone with a premeditated murder. Maybe it's a gang shootout or something like that, and he gets 5 years in prison for that, even though it's like his 10th offence or something. You think, well, gee, that's a fairly light sort of sentence there. But that, just around the same time, there's another black guy. I remember that guy got 5 years for murder. There's another black guy who finds his girlfriend has taken all the money out of his wallet, and he wants to know where it is. She won't tell him, so he beats her up until she tells him, and so this is assault. So he's assaulted his girlfriend. Now, whether you can say that that it was he was provoked into it is another matter. But instead of 5 years for murder, he gets 8 years for assaulting his girlfriend. So we constantly see, well, that's hold on a minute, murder gets less of a sentence. And now, recently there was some black guys, beat up this white guy who was a government employee, beat up this white guy in the United States, and gave him a decent kicking and all that sort of stuff. They were arrested, but they were given a good behaviour bond or community service and a good behaviour bond. And so we see these sorts of things. So, a girl tries to strangle a mother to death and gets a good behaviour bond and no prison time. Vicious assaults and robbery that leave people with mental and physical handicaps for life, and they'll get probation or a suspended sentence or some community service or a 12-month sentence, but they're out in 3 months. These sorts of things. Or people that have committed multiple homicides, and they get a 15-year sentence, but because of supposed or alleged good behaviour, they're out in 3 years, and things like this. So there seems to be an odd sort of, it's very disjointed. It's not matching up. Surely murder is murder. If you look at the amount of, say, murders in a place like Baltimore or downtown Chicago on the South Side, where gangs, gangs have shootouts, every day, and particularly on weekends and holidays and so on. They have shootouts where 20 people, 30 people can be shot in just one weekend. And I mean, it's a war zone, isn't it, when you get that many people being shot? And I'm surprised at how lenient the sentences are that are handed out, and how quickly some of these people are back on the street. So it's possible to have a career criminal that may have committed multiple murders, assaults, robberies, goodness knows what, and they're back on the street without any sort of hope, I would imagine, of rehabilitating them or having them exist in society without it being a menace. Now, there's some attitudes that if black people are shooting each other, they're people of equal social power. So where these cases occur, where people of equal social power kill each other, two black gang members or something, that's considered, who cares? But where the criminal interaction is people of unequal social power, then suddenly the ideological fanatics appear from all sides, and they want a different treatment of justice. Should the person be prosecuted in the first place? If they're going to be prosecuted, should they be thrown in prison, or should they get some good behaviour bond or a community service order or something like that? And we see now that there's a huge divergence there. Now, some of this is in the wider ideological miasma of the Western world. For example, the big problem in England is, in the London trains, is brown and black people harassing white chicks, and that's by far and away the big issue. But whenever the propaganda is put out, it's always very respectable looking white people, or mostly, well, it's always white people, and often dudes in suits and so on, harassing poor black or brown chicks or Asian chicks, non-white chicks. And that's just the default template they use. Same in Australia and other Western countries. Always those evil straight white, preferably middle class men. So this is the wider miasma. This is what goes through law schools, gender studies, sociology, psychology. It's everywhere. It's those damn fucking straight white male Nazi oppressors. They're the problem. No one else is the problem. What are all the black guys shooting each other? It's the white guys, Nazis, Hitler, swastika, and these are the straight white guy is viewed as the eternal perennial, all-encompassing go-to villain in all matters, ideological and sociological, and to do with social power, particularly where social power is deemed to be a factor. And now, you won't find a prosecutor or a judge or a lawyer who doesn't think social power isn't the primary issue to be considered when the crime, but the person committed murder. But the social power, and so this becomes the go-to mitigating factor, which means that straight white males are pretty much always guilty. In fact, double guilt in their case, because they got to say they might have committed the crime and have the social power. If they didn't commit the crime, then they still have the social power, which means they're ideologically guilty anyway. Whereas, the black guy that commits the crime, or the non top of the social power totem pole commits the crime, then it's not really the same, and they shouldn't be punished as much or as severely. Whereas the white guy should be punished, more than severely, to try and punish him for the social power that he has, and so that it's very much caught up in this ideology. So even though by far and away the majority of rapes, attempted rapes, sexual assaults, and so on against women are committed by brown and black, by far and away, brown and black guys, and white guys constitute barely 10% of the total, it doesn't matter. If you look at the court cases for technical rape and these sorts of things, it's nearly all white guys they're dragging into court, and that's clearly the target. That's what they want. Those are the scalps they want, and you see this playing out across now so many areas of law, so that a career criminal black guy, isn't really going to get punished that much. He's already suffered because of evil white man's law anyway. So why should he be made to suffer again? Just put him back on the street. Gee whiz. And that'll show those white devil Nazis, that they're not running the show here. We are, and this is something that's playing out across the justice system, all across the Western world, and of course it's creating havoc. It's no longer treating crime as crime. Everyone's equal before the law. That is the crime they commit. And if the white guy commits murder, or the black guy, the brown guy, this or that, or the woman, or it's still murder and should be seen as that and judged as that. But instead, no, it's now splintered off into all sorts of social power considerations, which means, the real career criminals are going back on the street, but the first-time offender white guy is being thrown in the prison, and he's not a threat to anybody. But such is the situation that we see across the Western world at the moment. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.